Are you awake?
Who are you? Where am I?
Please, just try to relax.
What am I doing here? Who the fuck are you?
My name is Callie. Do you remember anything?
Where am I?
Try to be quiet.
Don't tell me to be quiet. Where am I?
We're trapped in this basement.
Help! Somebody please help me!
The film opens with an unidentified individual driving before stopping to retrieve a woman from the trunk of their vehicle. Danay Edwards, a psychologist, informs her patient that he may have unresolved issues with his mother, as he experiences panic attacks in her presence. Meanwhile, Danay repeatedly ignores calls and voicemails from her Aunt Rochelle, who urges her to return home for a long-awaited family reunion after years of absence. The following morning, Danay wakes to her 7 a.m. alarm and begins her routine, unaware that she is being watched. Later, she visits the 8-track bar near her office, finishes a glass of wine, and leaves. The next day, Danay awakens not in her bed, but on a comforter on the floor, greeted by the voice of a woman named Callie Holloway. When Danay frantically questions her, Callie urges her to stay calm and quiet, fearing retaliation from their captor. Callie explains that they are being held in a basement. Danay, trembling, rushes to the door and screams for help, but is restrained by chains on her wrists. Callie recounts being attacked while jogging, briefly regaining consciousness in a car trunk, and waking up chained in the basement with a silent man staring at her. She had pleaded with him not to harm her, but received no response. Callie shows Danay torn pieces of paper she's used to count the days, 63 in total, though she admits she may have missed a few. Danay, noticing Callie's composed demeanor, asks if she has given up. Callie replies that she hasn't, but Danay will soon understand why she appears that way. Neither woman knows why they were abducted. Danay suspects she was drugged, as her last memory is entering an Uber after drinks. Callie reveals that the captor assaults her frequently, though not nightly. Danay breaks down, fearing she will endure the same fate. As feared, the captor forcibly takes Danay to an upstairs bedroom despite her resistance. Callie, equally terrified, tries to convince herself that Danay will be okay. Danay is later returned to the basement, emotionally shattered and in tears. Elsewhere, Marley Collum, a bartender at Benny's, ignores her mother's messages urging her to reconnect. She chats with a customer about how men have become increasingly inappropriate, frequently sending unsolicited explicit photos. That night, Marley leaves Benny's after her shift, unaware she's being watched. The next day, she matches with a man named Keith Bradbury on the dating app Love Match, and they begin talking. Back in the basement, Callie and Danay struggle to understand how they failed to notice their stalker. When they hear muffled voices upstairs, Danay screams for help. The captor responds by entering the basement, punching Danay in the stomach and choking Callie for not silencing her. Later, Callie is returned to the basement after another assault. She confesses that she no longer resists and simply waits for it to end. Danay admits she can only cry. Callie notes that the captor seems different, often in a way she can't quite define. When Danay asks if Callie's family is searching for her, Callie shares that her father left when she was young and she doesn't know her mother's whereabouts. Danay explains that her family lives out of state and likely doesn't know she's missing. Callie reminisces about meeting her partner Andrea and expresses a desperate hope to return to her. At the Philadelphia Police Department, Danay's missing person case is assigned to Detective Theresa D'Alessandro. Upon reviewing the report, D'Alessandro also pulls up Callie's file. After more than 2 weeks of messaging, Keith finally visits Benny's. Keith and Marley finally meet in person.
After Marley finishes her shift, the two head to D.K. diner for their first date, unaware that someone is watching them.
Detective Marcus Bridgman informs Detective Theresa D'Alessandro that Callie Holloway has been missing for several months. Her landlady, however, has shown little concern, focusing solely on unpaid rent. D'Alessandro explains that Danay Edwards' disappearance was reported by her Aunt Rochelle after Danay failed to attend a long-awaited family gathering. She adds that Callie, an English tutor, was reported missing by the mother of one of her students after a 2-week absence. One evening, while walking to work, Marley is attacked and abducted. Later that night, Keith arrives at Benny's shortly before closing to pick her up, as he usually does, but is surprised to find she's not there. Bartender Tanya tells him Marley never showed up, despite it being a busy night. Keith insists Marley had confirmed she would be working. Concerned, Keith asks Tanya for Marley's address, but she refuses, citing safety reasons. She speculates that Marley might be retaliating for Tanya's own absence the previous night. Marley regains consciousness beside Danay and begins screaming. Danay and Callie urgently plead with her to stay quiet, fearing the abductor will hear. Danay covers Marley's mouth and explains that they've been kidnapped and held captive for months. Soon after, the abductor takes Marley upstairs. After multiple unanswered calls, Keith reports Marley's disappearance to the authorities. He provides D'Alessandro with all the information he has, including a list of people he contacted. While chained to a bed, Danay attempts to reason with the abductor by offering psychological help, but he refuses. Upon being returned to the basement, she vomits and breaks down in tears. Meanwhile, Callie reflects on her relationship with Andrea. She recalls that after they were intimate, Andrea revealed she would be traveling for work and could not continue the relationship. D'Alessandro and Bridgman begin analyzing the cases, searching for commonalities among the three missing women. Aside from their solitary lifestyles, no clear link emerges. They re-interview Keith to rule out his involvement. Tearfully, he tells them he would accept being ghosted, he just wants to know Marley is safe. Reviewing CCTV footage from the 8-track bar, the detectives spot a man who frequents the establishment. Although the outdoor footage only shows Danay leaving, they note that the man had departed earlier and received a parking ticket that night. D'Alessandro and Bridgman visit the man, Matthew Martin, at his home. They explain that while they don't typically investigate unpaid parking violations, his ticket was issued near one of the last known locations of a missing person. When asked if he was at the 8-track bar on Thursday, September 3rd, and shown a photo of Danay, Matthew admits he visits the bar but doesn't pay attention to other patrons. He claims he left around 7 p.m. to begin his night shift at Holt's Warehouse and Packaging, clocking in at 8 p.m. and working through the night. Before departing, D'Alessandro shows him a photo of Marley, which he denies recognizing. After the detectives leave, Matthew becomes visibly agitated, fearing he was nearly caught. He descends into the basement and informs the women that they will be relocating to a larger house in a rural area to start a family. He insists he loves them and never intended harm. The women remain silent and still, terrified of provoking him. D'Alessandro and Bridgman later visit Holt's Warehouse and speak with manager Carl Renner, who confirms that Matthew clocked in at 8 p.m. and worked a full 12-hour shift until 8 a.m. This account is supported by the facility's CCTV footage. The three women devise a plan to comply with Matthew's demands in hopes of gaining his trust and lowering his guard, believing it may create an opportunity to escape. Observing that their chains are old and worn, they attempt to use parts from the toilet tank to scrape away the concrete anchoring the restraints. One evening, while disposing of trash, Matthew's neighbor casually asks if he has a new roommate, having seen someone inside the house after Matthew had left. Matthew denies it, insisting he lives alone. After assaulting Callie, Matthew asks if she likes him. When she says yes, he accuses her of lying and alludes to past abuse from his mother, who he claims would become violent whenever he lied. Detectives D'Alessandro and Bridgman visit Benny's bar, where a waiter confirms that Matthew is not a regular but has been served a few times. He typically sits in the back room, receives table service, and watches sports. While surveilling Matthew's home, D'Alessandro notices his gray car parked outside and calls Bridgman, who is stationed at Holt's Warehouse. Moments later, Bridgman sees Matthew arrive at work in a red truck, leading them to suspect he owns two vehicles. They meet at the courthouse to obtain a warrant to search Matthew's residence. Disturbed by the belief that Callie will never love him, Matthew abruptly leaves work and returns home. He breaks his usual routine by taking Callie upstairs instead of Marley and failing to lock the basement door, alarming Marley and Danay. Matthew chains Callie to the bed and tells her he had hoped they could be a family, but since it isn't working, he must let her go. He confesses that she was his first, and he believes she was meant for him. Fearing for her life, Callie pleads for another chance, offering to comfort and love him. Matthew unhooks her chain and begins to assault her while her restrained hands remain around his neck. During the act, he chokes her and tearfully apologizes, saying he has no choice and that he loves her. Meanwhile, Marley and Danay manage to break free from their chains and arm themselves with a knife. As Matthew becomes distracted, Callie seizes the moment to choke him with her chain. Danay then stabs him. In his final breath, Matthew tells Callie he loves her. As the trio escapes the house, Callie hears muffled cries coming from the trunk of Matthew's gray car. She and Marley return to retrieve the keys, but are ambushed by Matthew's twin brother, who violently attacks them. Marley manages to stab him, killing him. The shocking revelation of two identical captors stuns the women. After freeing a terrified fourth victim from the trunk, they inform her that her abuser is dead. Shortly after, D'Alessandro and Bridgman arrive on the scene and see the four women running toward them. D'Alessandro calls for backup while Bridgman enters the house. 3 months later, Danay, Callie, and Marley, who is reunited with Keith, begin rebuilding their lives. The three women reunite at the 8-track bar, where emotions run high. D'Alessandro joins them and shares that more details about the case will be released soon. She explains that the brothers, Matthew and John Martin, appeared to have lived as one identity. John's record ceased when he was around 12 years old, with no death certificate ever filed, suggesting he simply vanished from official records. When Callie inquires about their mother, referencing Matthew's earlier comments, D'Alessandro reveals that her remains were discovered buried in the yard. While the full pathology report is pending, early findings suggest she died approximately 10 years ago. After D'Alessandro departs, the three women share a quiet drink together. Though fictional, the story is deeply unsettling and emotionally intense, reflecting the harsh realities many women have faced. What are your thoughts on this film's portrayal of trauma and survival?